We meet our protagonist Jack, who has dreams of Earth before the war, lush and whole, a world he's only seen in photos. In these dreams, he sees a woman who smiles at him warmly. Though he's never met her, he feels a powerful connection, as if the dream is less a fantasy and more of a memory. He wakes in the year 2077, haunted by these visions. Even after the mandatory memory wipe 5 years ago, Jack and his partner Victoria are stationed on Earth to protect the hydro rigs, machines that convert seawater into energy essential for humanity's survival on Titan, Saturn's largest moon. In 2 weeks, their mission will be over, and they'll join the others on Titan. But while Victoria is focused and compliant, Jack is plagued by curiosity, questioning everything around him. He and Victoria are among the last humans on Earth, where the remnants of an alien species known as the Scavs continue to threaten their operation, disrupting the drones and attacking Jack whenever possible. The Scavs were once a powerful force. Half a century ago, they destroyed Earth's moon in a desperate attempt to take over a livable planet, throwing Earth into chaos. With the moon gone, massive earthquakes and tsunamis devastated the land. Though humanity ultimately defeated the Scavs with nuclear weapons, the planet was left mostly uninhabitable. Survivors built the Tet, a temporary space station, before migrating to Titan. Now Jack and Victoria remain on Earth as an effective team, as Mission Control calls them. Victoria is his communication officer, keeping in contact with the Tet, while Jack maintains and repairs the drones that protect the hydro rigs from attack. Victoria is eager to leave Earth for Titan, but Jack still thinks of Earth as home. Preparing for his daily patrol, Jack powers up his vessel, checks in with Victoria, and then takes off. As he confirms visuals on the hydro rigs below, Victoria informs him that 2 drones are down. She contacts Mission Control on the Tet, where Sally assigns their day's directive: repair drone 166 and locate drone 172. Jack sets off, following a beacon to drone 166, but as he flies through a storm, a lightning strike causes him to lose control momentarily, sending his vessel into a sharp descent. Victoria urgently requests replacement parts for the damaged drones, while Jack struggles to regain control, narrowly avoiding a crash. Finally steady, he reaches the first drone's location. Before Jack lands, Victoria scans for Scav activity, though her visibility is limited. Touching down near the damaged drone, Jack grabs his repair gear and tells Victoria to stay alert and watch his back. While Jack is working on the drone and chatting with Victoria over the comms, he senses someone watching him. Victoria doubts he can fix the drone, but Jack improvises, using a piece of chewing gum to get it functioning. As the drone powers up, Victoria notices unusual activity on her monitors. Jack turns, expecting trouble, but instead, he finds only a dog staring back at him. To keep it safe, he shoos the dog away before the drone can detect it. The drone almost attacks Jack, but after scanning his ID, the drone completes its sweep and blasts off. Jack sits down for lunch, discussing with Victoria how the Scavs seem to be getting bolder. She counters that once they leave Earth, only dust and radiation will remain. Deciding to continue his search for the second drone, Jack prepares his bike and rides through the vast, desolate landscape, a former ocean floor now dry and barren. As he travels, he picks up a faint signal from the drone somewhere ahead, though he can't see it. Soon, he comes across a large sinkhole and suspects the drone may have fallen inside. Jack informs Victoria that he's heading in to investigate. She warns him that the Tet will go offline in 15 minutes, which means he'll be on his own. He secures a rope to his bike and carefully lowers himself into the sinkhole. From a distance, the Scavs continue to observe his every move. Victoria tries to bring the drone back to Jack's location for backup, but Jack is now completely out of contact. Descending further, Jack finally hears the faint hum of the drone and spots it below. He carefully makes his way across a narrow beam to reach it, but just as he gets close, he realizes something's wrong. There's no drone, only the beacon left behind, indicating he's been lured into a trap. The Scavs ambush Jack, dragging him down, but he quickly shoots their line to break free. He spots a few of them nearby and shoots, forcing them to scatter. Jack leaps to the other side, barely making it as they pursue him. Once across, he clips onto his rope, preparing to climb out, but the sharp rocks weaken and snap the line, sending him tumbling back down into the sinkhole. With the Scavs closing in, it seems like he's out of options, until a drone appears above. The drone swoops in, scanning the area briefly before unleashing a barrage of firepower on the Scavs, eliminating them. Once the drone secures the site, it scans Jack, momentarily unsure of his ID, but ultimately lets him go. As Jack gathers himself, he notices an old book lying on the ground and decides to bring it along. Climbing back up, he realizes that his bike has been stolen, forcing him to make his way home on foot. Later, as he showers back at the tower, a memory of New York City flashes through his mind. Afterward, While repairing a drone, he flips open the book to read, though Victoria interrupts him as she prepares their dinner, with the sun setting in the background. Jack offers her some flowers he's brought back, but Victoria discards them, reminding him they could be toxic. As they eat, Jack tells her he's certain the scavs weren't trying to kill him. They wanted him alive. Afterward, Victoria heads to the outdoor pool, slips off her clothes and dives in, urging Jack to join her. He lingers by the edge, watching her, lost in thought. Jack suggests that Victoria join him on the ground someday, to experience Earth's surface together before they leave. Instead, she pulls him into the pool, where they share a kiss and slip under the water. As they submerge, Jack has another vivid flash of the woman from his dreams, pulling him momentarily away from the present. He later wakes up in bed to the sight of a distant explosion lighting up the horizon. Concerned, Jack heads out to investigate and suspects that the scavs may have weaponized one of the hydro rigs, turning it against the drones. While assessing the situation, Jack picks up an unexpected off-world signal, a rogue transmission coming from the top of the ruined Empire State Building. Determined to trace it, he makes his way to the building and climbs to where the signal originates. Inside, he's struck by a sense of familiarity, as if he's walked these halls before. Following the signal, he reaches an area scattered with small keepsakes, items that seem strangely personal. The beacon above is using the building as an antenna, and Victoria helps him decode the signal. It reveals a set of coordinates leading to a remote area far from their usual patrol zones. After disabling the beacon, Jack resumes his rounds, skirting the edges of a heavily irradiated zone. Before heading back, he takes a moment to survey the perimeter one last time. Jack flies into a scenic ravine, landing his vessel beside a secluded house by a lake. Inside, he switches on the lights and places the small items he's collected over time, a few trinkets, among the keepsakes he's already gathered here. He puts on a Led Zeppelin record, steps outside, and savors the peacefulness of the area, knowing he'll miss this place when he has to leave. He drifts off to sleep on the grass, once again dreaming of the mysterious woman on the Empire State Building. He awakes to a sudden flash of movement in the sky, a falling object. He immediately takes off in pursuit, guided by Victoria, who pinpoints its landing site. It's the same location as the rogue beacon coordinates he had recently discovered. Before his communication with Mission Control goes offline, Victoria updates them on the situation. Sally instructs Jack to stand down, explaining that drones have already been deployed to the area, but Jack, curious and determined, continues on. As he nears the site, he realizes the object appears to be a human artifact, something created before the war. When he finally arrives, Jack is stunned to discover hibernation pods, each containing a person in deep sleep, preserved from a time long before Earth was left in ruin. Jack radios Victoria, letting her know he's found 5 human survivors. As he inspects the last pod, he realizes it's the woman from his dreams. Suddenly, drones arrive and start attacking the pods. Jack tries to command them to stop, but drone 166 scans his ID, preparing to target him and the remaining pod. Despite clearing Jack's ID, it still locks onto the pod, ready to destroy it. Jack steps in, firing at the drone and disabling it to protect the woman inside. He narrowly escapes with the pod, under the watchful eyes of the scavs observing from a distance. With Victoria's help, Jack makes it back to the tower, where they quickly open the pod. Victoria tells him to grab the medical kit, insisting they need to report this immediately. But Jack explains the drone's aggressive behavior. Just then, the woman awakens, coughing up fluid as she gasps for air, collapsing into Jack's arms and calling him by name. Later, as she fully regains consciousness, she asks where she is. Victoria introduces herself and Jack, and the woman identifies herself as Julia. Victoria explains about the crash, her pod, and her crew, but Julia seems disoriented and uncertain. When Julia asks how long she's been asleep, Jack tells her it's been 60 years. The three sit down for a meal, and Jack begins asking Julia about her mission and the beacon they found. Julia reveals she needs the flight recorder from her ship, but Victoria cautions her, reminding her how drastically Earth has changed in the time she's been gone. Jack and Victoria explain the alien invasion to Julia, telling her that the rest of humanity is now either on Saturn's moon, Titan, or stationed on the Tet. Julia notices them holding hands and laughs, but Victoria seems uncomfortable around her. Later, when Jack and Victoria discuss Julia, Victoria insists that she should be removed, feeling uneasy about her presence. Jack asks Victoria if she remembers anything from before their mission, but this frustrates her, and she reminds him that Julia's pod came down because of a scav beacon, hinting that scavs may know where they live. Later, Jack informs Julia that Victoria will report her arrival to the Tet, and someone will come down for her. Julia presses that they need to retrieve the flight recorder from her crashed ship to understand what really happened. Although Victoria warns Jack that she can't protect him if he goes, he sets off with Julia to the crash site. Through the bubble ship's cameras, Victoria watches as they search the wreckage. Jack tells Julia he couldn't save the other pods. As Julia searches for the recorder, Victoria picks up unusual activity on her monitors, but she can't warn them in time. Scavs suddenly appear, knocking Jack out. They capture both him and Julia and transport them away. The next day, the bubble ship returns to Victoria on autopilot, empty. Mission control comes online, but Victoria withholds the full story. After Jack's departure, she requests a drone to scout his last known location. Jack wakes up, restrained, with a light shining in his face. A man emerges from the shadows, quoting lines from the book Jack had found, and mentions he's been observing Jack's curiosity. Jack insists they won't get information from him since his memory was wiped. The man, Beach, asks if Jack has ever actually met a scav, visited the radiation zones, or questioned his orders. Suddenly the lights come on, revealing a large underground space full of people. Beach explains that they're just humans forced to hide from the drones, whose purpose is to eliminate the remaining human population. He asks why Jack saved Julia from the drone, and Jack replies that anyone would have done the same. Another man, Sykes, enters, warning that a drone will follow Jack back. They release Jack, who is confused but follows. Meanwhile, Victoria monitors Jack's tracker, confirming his location. Beach then leads Jack to their facility, explaining they downed Julia's ship to access its reactor. Beach explains to Jack that with Julia's ship's reactor and the fuel cells they've scavenged, they can build a nuclear bomb. A drone could deliver it to the Tet's core, but only Jack has the clearance to access one. Meanwhile, a drone begins tracking Jack's DNA to their location. Beach insists Jack must program the drone to carry the nuke and end the war, but Jack resists, prompting Sykes to shoot him. To force his hand, they bring in Julia and threaten her. Just then, an alarm signals an incoming drone. It arrives, scanning the hideout, and the scavs attempt to take it down. The drone kills several scavs before Sykes finally destroys it. Victoria, monitoring from mission control, confirms the drone has gone offline and requests backup. Jack relays this to Beach, who agrees to release him and Julia. Jack and Julia arrive at the Empire State Building, where Jack sends Victoria a message. She notifies mission control that Jack is alive, canceling the backup drones, and sends their vessel to pick him up. While they wait, Jack asks Julia who she really is. She explains that her mission was originally a research flight to Titan, but 6 weeks before launch, her team detected an alien object, the Tet, and was reassigned to investigate. Julia reveals that Jack was her husband and proposed to her at this very spot, leaving Jack with a flood of memories that still feel disjointed. When the vessel arrives, Victoria sees them embracing. She allows them to board but is visibly upset. Once back at their tower, she refuses them entry, notifying the Tet about Julia despite Jack's protests. A drone appears, and as Jack tries to convince Victoria to leave with him, she refuses to believe his story. The drone kills her, then turns its weapon on Jack, but Julia steps in just in time to disable it. Jack finally speaks to the Tet, and it insists he and Julia return for reassignment. With drones en route to retrieve them, Jack and Julia prepare to confront the truth about his past and the Tet's real intentions. Jack and Julia are pursued by drones, leading to a tense chase through a storm. Jack guides them into the lightning to damage the drones, then hides behind a waterfall. The drones lose him, and Jack strikes, taking out 2 of them, though the third almost forces their vessel into a crash. Just as they think they're safe, drone 166 catches up, colliding with their ship and sending them hurtling into the radiation zone. Jack pulls the emergency escape lever, and they crash land. Stranded, Jack hears another drone nearby and heads toward it, only to spot a second vessel identical to his own. Through his scope, he realizes the pilot is himself. The second Jack, Jack 52, orders him to drop his weapon. They struggle, first with guns, then hand to hand, until Jack 49 manages to overpower Jack 52. Just then, drone 166 reactivates, but Jack 49 quickly disarms it by removing its fuel cell. The next morning, Jack is resolute. He decides to help Beach and bring Julia along. When they arrive, Beach is relieved that Jack is fully on board. Meanwhile, the Tet reviews security footage, identifying Jack and dispatching 3 drones to eliminate them. While Jack prepares the drone for their mission, Beach explains how he witnessed the destruction of the moon, the Tet invasion, and how all the drones were led by clones of Jack Harper with erased memories. Beach tells Jack that, after seeing him protect Julia and pick up a book, he realized Jack might be different and capable of helping the resistance. Jack activates the drone, and Beach expresses his wish to be there when the nuke detonates on the Tet, even though it's a one-way trip. As they prepare, the Tet's drones arrive first, unleashing destruction on the hideout. The scavs and humans fight back, but the drones overpower them, causing devastating losses. Beach manages to destroy one of the attacking drones but is injured in the process, and the drone carrying the nuke is destroyed. Sykes takes out the second drone, while Jack handles the third. Realizing the original plan has failed, Julia proposes a new one. Since the Tet requested that Jack bring her up, he can use her pod to carry the nuke. They share a farewell in front of a painting that reminds her of home. Jack places the explosive in the pod, gently lays Julia inside, and tells her to dream of them together. As they head toward the Tet, Jack plays the old flight recorder, recalling his past as the mission commander, with Victoria as his co-pilot and Julia and the rest of the crew in hibernation. Approaching the Tet, he informs them he's bringing in a survivor, and they grant him access. In his memory, Jack remembers how he and Victoria were captured after the Tet took control of their ship, and he ejected the hibernation pod to save the crew. In the present, Jack encounters rows of clones of himself and Victoria as he approaches the Tet's core. The Tet greets him as if welcoming him home. He opens the pod, revealing Beach inside, while Julia, safe at the lakeside cabin, wakes up. Jack and Beach activate the nuke, destroying the Tet and all its drones. 3 years later, Julia lives peacefully at the lake with her young daughter. Survivors eventually find her, and with them is Jack 52, who has arrived to reunite with his family. That's all for this movie recap. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe to help out the channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.